Hello, everybody. Welcome to another day of the Journalism AI Festival. It's day 3, and I'm Lakshmi, a community coordinator with Journalism AI. I'm going to be the host for this particular session. Just before we get to the session, I thought I'd do a brief round of reminders for those of you who just managed to catch us. So just to start off with, I'd like to talk about what the Journalism AI Festival is all about. So it's essentially a celebration of the most exciting developments at the intersection of journalism and artificial intelligence. So over this week, we've been having conversations and case studies related to journalism and artificial intelligence by experts within the news organizations. It's hosted by us, the team at Journalism AI. And Journalism AI is a project of Polis, which is the journalism think tank at the London School of Economics and Political Science. It's supported by the Google News Initiative. If you go to our website, journalismai.info, you will get all the information that you need about getting started with artificial intelligence in your newsroom. So we have a lot of course materials like machine learning for journalists, which is completely free. And we most recently published an AI journalism starter pack, which contains answers to the most pressing questions that community members ask us about getting started with AI in their newsrooms. So make sure to check out the website and you'll get a lot of good information from there. And also to talk about how to enjoy the festival, we have a brief round of recommendations. One is if you have any questions at all for the speakers, make sure to put it in the YouTube live chat. We will be monitoring it periodically and we will ask the speakers those questions at the end of the conversation that they're having. If you're not already part of the community on Telegram, make sure you join over there. We just hit 500 members yesterday, I believe, after talking about it for so long. The link is t.me/journalismai. If you're going to be tweeting about us or if you're going to be sharing on social media about the festival, make sure to use the hashtag journalismai so that we can also give you those retweets and shares. And if you want to know what more we have in store for you over the next 2 days of the festival, check out the program at journalismaifestival.com. Last 2 points. One is, if you've not already signed up for the newsletter, please make sure to do so. We're trying to hit 4,000 subscribers there. So go ahead and sign up for that. And finally, the biggest recommendation of all, we recommend that you be open, be curious, and be kind, because we're all here to learn from each other. And that's the best way to go about doing so. And now, just before I get to what the session of the hour is, I want to remind you that at 12:15 today, we have another session called Larger Than Articles: How Might We Build News Experiences from Smaller Units of Content? So the EMEA Collab Challenges participants will be talking about how they're using artificial intelligence to create new news experiences for audiences. They'll mostly be focusing on podcasts and news storylines. So don't miss this session. And now for the session of the hour, which is Kickstarting the AI Journey as a Small Newsroom. So this will be done by speakers who are from small newsrooms themselves, and we'll be obviously talking about small newsrooms. And the moderator for the session is Samya Ayish, who is an independent journalist and an AI enthusiast. And so I'd like to welcome her. Hello, Samya. I give you the stage, the virtual stage, to moderate this session.
Thank you very much, Lakshmi. Thank you for having me in this amazing festival. I'm sure everybody is having a great time listening to some great work from all around the world. And I'm very happy today to be joined also in this session talking about small newsrooms by wonderful colleagues who come from different parts of the world as well. So Sabin, you're based in the UAE. Rebecca is based in London, and Lee is based in South Africa. So we're gonna look at different experiences and different challenges that come from different parts of the world. But before I start, I would love for all my guests to introduce themselves very briefly so that we can have then our time to chat and talk about also the use of AI in your newsroom. So if we can start with Sabin and then Rebecca, and then we go to Lee.
Hi, thank you, Samya. My name is Sabin Muzaffar, and I'm the executive editor and founder of Ananke, a digital platform empowering women through awareness, advocacy, and education. And we focus on inclusion, gender, diversity, and we've been here since 2014. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabin. Rebecca?
Yes, hi everyone. So I'm the audience editor at the Thomson Reuters Foundation here in London, which is the charitable arm of Thomson Reuters. We have a small newsroom with about 50 journalists, and we focus on climate change, inclusive economies, and the impact of technology on society. And so in my role, I focus on three kind of broad buckets of things. So analytics, looking after the daily performance of stories and circulating those insights around to the editors. Also user research, and then audience-facing products like newsletters and surveys and all those good things.
Great, thanks, Rebecca. And finally, Lee.
Thanks, Samya. So my name is Mwiti. I am the chief editor of Africa Check. We are also a small newsroom of about 45 staff, and we have been in operation since 2012. So I joined Africa Check about 5 years ago. Previously, I was deputy editor of the Pan-African focused Mail and Guardian Africa, and also a senior writer at the Africa Review, based in Nairobi. So at Africa Check, I oversee editorial operations in our 3 country offices, that is Kenya, South Africa, and Nigeria. And I also help support our French language office, which is headquartered in Dakar, Senegal. Part of this involves nurturing a nascent collaborative AI pilot project that aims to achieve more focus for us internally and also to attain more impact externally, including for the wider fact-checking community. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Lee. Before we start with our conversation, I would like also to encourage our viewers to write your questions, comments in the chat box. Let's make this a very interactive session because we want to learn and we want to explore the lessons learned and the knowledge that our guests have, but we also want to learn from you and see if we have experiences that we can share from everyone. So I want to start with a question that talks about the problem that we're trying to solve with AI. So I know that each one of you comes from different background, whether it is distribution or news gathering or production. So from this background that each of one has, what sort of problem are you trying to solve when thinking of the implementation of AI in your newsroom? I want to start with Sabin, I want to start with Lee, since we want to take it from news gathering to production and then finally to distribution. So Lee, if we want to talk about news gathering, what's the problem that we're trying to solve in your newsroom?
Thank you, Samya. So I come from a fact-checking background, and for us, we essentially examine claims that are made in public debate and take them through a fact-checking process, and then we publish our results, and also we take a step further and sort of campaign for accuracy by organizations and institutions such as the media. So for us, I see 2 immediate use cases for which the fact-checking community has been exploring in terms of using AI, and 1 potential use case. And one of the use cases that we are struggling with is that of monitoring and surveillance, so helping us as fact checkers to find the best claims. So right now the process is very manual. So we find claims manually, say on Twitter, we build lists, we go to advanced Twitter search, we go on Facebook, we follow specific people and accounts, we monitor the day's news cycle in the media, we set up Google Alerts, we rely on our readers, so they can email us, they can send us messages via WhatsApp or any other social media platform. And reader suggestions tend to be quite useful for us to get out of echo chambers and gain insight as to what is circulating in private groups and tech, yeah? But they also tend to be quite involving in terms of the resources that we need to sort of moderate what is coming through. We also rely manually on social listening tools such as CrowdTangle, BuzzSumo, and others such as Trendolizer, right? When it comes to monitoring and surveilling for claims, the pain point tends to be that you'd imagine all that monitoring takes time. And the thing is, we must pass and discard huge amounts of irrelevant information from different sources. So fact checking is also tedious work because, again, you have to allocate your resources in the best way possible. And so what we are looking to solve our pain points through AI tech is, one, we want to find the most important claims to fact check every day. We don't want to have to spend too much time sieving through the various platforms. We want also to have our work travel further. We want to get better at automatically detecting rather people or sources who repeat things that we have previously fact-checked, so that each fact-check we write can work as hard as possible for us. And also we want to check claims in real time. So that is a pain point for us, the issue of time. I think also a second pain point is when it comes to verifying, a lot of misinformation is visual. And the tools that are available to check it, such as reverse image search, are not easily accessible to mobile phone users, especially in the global south, where we've seen an explosion of cheap data. So if we can find ways that we can use AI to allow us to quickly tell the provenance of an image, I think that would be quite a headache solved for us. So for us, I think that really is the two main pain points: just better use of our time to be more efficient, and also to help our audiences do fact checking for themselves.
Oh, great! I mean, I would think these are one of the most important things that every journalist needs help with, especially when it comes to verification. So, if I want to move to Sabin and talk about some of the pain points as well that you were trying to solve when it comes to the implementation of AI, how would you describe them?
So for us, the biggest challenge is publishing, because right now everything that we do publish, we do it manually, be it on the platform or social media, and we only use TweetDeck for our Twitter posts. It made our life a bit simpler. But when and Ananke at Ananke, we organize a lot of events as well. We've got our two flagship events. One is the Girl Summit; it's a digital event, and the other is the Women in Literature Festival. So what happens, because we're a small newsroom, when we start planning and organizing the event, the main part, which is the publishing bit, that gets that takes a back seat. So now what we're trying to do is, our parent company is coming up with a tool, a publishing tool, where all the we've got our content, we've got our press releases, we've got everything with us, but it's managing and organizing and scheduling, and of course publishing though that content is really important, and we're doing that manually at the moment. But so now what we're doing is we're going to use that tool. What that tool does is, we've all the emails and all the content is redirected to that tool, and from that tool, it gets edited, it gets proofread, and then of course it after that is done, it goes to an editor, which being a human, from there it is checked, and in very lay terms I'm telling you, because I'm a non-techie myself. So after that, it once it gets approved, it goes to the channel. If it's if we're publishing it on LinkedIn, we use APIs. If we're publishing it on our platform, it's a WordPress. It's on WordPress, so we use bots. We're going to, not at the moment, we're going to use bots, so that the articles, simpler articles, the press releases are published through that. So that is what we're planning to do.
Amazing. I just want to comment on the on what you said regarding the very technical terms. I know that most of the audience here are journalists, just like myself. And when it comes to the very, very big technical words and so on, we kind of like feel anxious. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows that, this is not a very technical festival. This is actually the festival for journalists to understand more about how AI works and how they could use it in their newsroom. So, I mean, thank you, Sabin, for simplifying the whole process. It looks actually very complicated, but the way you described it made it very, very easy to understand.
Yeah, because if I don't understand it, that's the important thing. I need to understand it so that, in common terms so that, I can work with it and play around with it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Sabine, very much. So I want to move to Rebecca now and talk about distribution, because for many, distribution is one of the biggest challenges, how to reach to your audience, how to reach to the right audience. So let's talk about the problem that you're trying to solve.
Yeah. So for us at the foundation, we've been focusing on bringing AI in for distribution, specifically automation to start, and also to help with analytics, which goes hand in hand with distribution. So as like Sabine, like so many of us here, we're always coming up against problems of resource when it comes to our production team. We have a very small production and web team. So we're constantly running up against bottlenecks in terms of servicing and circulating our news stories, but also making decisions around what stories we want to keep up on our site longer, what needs to kind of be moved around. And when you've got, a production team that's already struggling to kind of get things out the door in the first place, playing around with your homepage can kind of fall by the wayside sometimes. So that was kind of the low-hanging fruit for us. And our entry point into AI has been thinking about how we can use automation to help us with doing homepage updating and freeing up those production resources to work on more sophisticated, bigger packages and projects like that, and just getting more out the door. Interestingly, that also really aligns with what our audiences have told us that they want through user research. One of the things that our readers have told us is that they would really like to see better curation of the sites that they read. So not only will starting out with automation help solve a problem for us as journalists and editors, but it's also going to solve a problem for the readers. And I think that's really, that makes it a really perfect place to start for us. I think that each in our own ways, Lee, Sabine, and myself, whatever you decide to focus on as a newsroom really needs to be the most significant pain point for you and the kind of low-hanging fruit. And if it's a pain point for your journalists and for readers, then that's really a win-win.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what's interesting about what you said, Rebecca, is that you also touched a little bit on the challenges that you faced in within your newsroom in the implementation of AI and the technology. So I actually want to touch on that question and go back to Lee and ask about the challenges that you have faced when you wanted to try and implement AI in your newsroom. We know that there could be challenges that are within the newsroom, but we know that there are also challenges that could be common between different newsrooms in a region, let's say. So let's talk a little bit, Lee, about that.
Thank you, Samya. Absolutely. We do have internal and external challenges. And I think building on what we've had from the fact-checking community, we tend to find challenges when it comes to resources. So that could either be financial or the technical know-how. We also see challenges when it comes to data in terms of getting data that you can, for example, feed into any AI model that you want to train. There is the challenge of buy-in, both at managerial level or at your colleagues' level, and obviously at audience level, and also in terms of ethics. You also struggle to, consider which ethics are going to be important when I am going to venture into automating, fact-checking, for example. So, for example, when it comes to resources, we have found that partnerships tend to be quite useful. So with like-minded organizations, I'll give the example that we have benefited from this in our own project because, we came together with Full Fact Check Yard. Those are two fact-checking organizations in the UK and Argentina, and also with the Open Data Institute, and felt that we could approach funders in this area who could buy into our vision that we want to do more fact checking and we want to do more impactful fact checking. So we were able to approach Google and put in an application to its AI Impact Challenge, and so we were one of the top proposals. Yeah, so we did get some transformative funding from that. Yeah. So partnerships with like-minded organizations can help you counter, the issue of resources and also, technical know-how. Because, for example, out of that project, our proposal to Google, we were able to get some coaching and some, like trinkets, like getting hosting on Google Cloud, or benefiting from Google's resources. So another probably way of countering the resource challenge, we think would be one is, or rather would be essentially looking for startups, in tech that, can do with the data that we as fact checkers generate to fine tune their own projects. So, we tend to see that this kind of startups tend to move to bigger clients when they discover newsrooms are still so small. But they are still an option when you're starting out, also when you're looking out for resources. And also probably we would have been keen also, and we are on the lookout for partnering with institutional organizations such as universities who would have the budgets and grants to prop up, what we want to do. But also I think the key thing there is you have to make sure that they have the same goals such as yours, and you are both able to move at similar speeds. In terms of getting internal buy-in, I think it's very important that you bring in your team early so that you're able to allay fears that tech is about to replace them, or you make sure that you are actually solving a pain point. That's a pain point. When you introduce AI into your organization, and then probably I think key to that is that you must have a specific strategy that will help you know what you need from AI. What are the risks or the opportunities. So absolutely, resources is one, and data is a key one for us, because in our neck of the woods in the global south, we find that it's difficult to get quality data, or find machine readable data, for example, or data that is accessible or up to date. So I think partnerships also that do help, because we've started conversations with national statistics offices to make available better data. But also I think that is quite a headache for us in terms of what we're trying to do, AI data, the quality of data. And I think also my last I think challenge I would highlight is that of ethics. So we need to be aware of biases. What model, type of data are we putting into any model, and in terms of transparency, are you making sure your readers know what you are doing with the data? If you need to assuage any privacy concerns, So I think for us, data, resources, and obviously getting the buy-in have been key challenges for us.
Great. Thank you very much, Lee, and congratulations on the Google Fund. I'm sure that always helps a lot with such projects.
It does, when you find people with deep pockets.
Great, great. So Sabin, listening to Lee, have you found anything in common with the challenges that you're facing within your organization and within the context of the region where you're based? I know in the Middle East, we have so many challenges when it comes to the implementation of AI. So I want to hear from you on that.
I absolutely agree with and echo Lee, whatever he said. For me, the biggest challenge was, call it a bias, that we were really afraid. When you hear the term AI or artificial intelligence, it's like you need an expert, you need resources, and a huge setup. And coming to this amazing program by Journalism AI, it made me realize actually that we are utilizing AI in bits and pieces, using analytics, using Facebook analytics or Google analytics, Google alerts, or things of things like that. So it made me think that perhaps this is not as ominous as it sounds, because when you think of AI, you think of algorithms and all these mathematical stuff, which of course they are there, but it's not that ominous now. So and I agree with Lee. You need collaborations, and that's one thing that we've done, and we're still doing. We're collaborating with Moonshot, with it's another organization whose founder took part in the Journalism AI program that we all did for a small newsroom. So I think it's really important to face these challenges with collaborations. I think that's because that way you're, basically, you have some expertise and the other organization has expertise that you may not have. So I think that is a great way to counter such challenges.
Great, amazing. So before I go to Rebecca for my question, I just want to remind our audience that if you have any question for Sabine, Rebecca, or Lee, please write them down in the comment section, or even if it's just a comment. We have some amazing comments coming from our viewers from different parts of the world. So we have all along from Egypt to China. So welcome everybody to this great session. So I want to go to Rebecca and ask about this word that is called collaboration. I mean, we've been hearing this word a lot. Lee mentioned it, Sabine mentioned it, and I've been reading a lot about it, especially in the Journalism AI Festival. So have collaboration been part of what you're doing with the Thomson Reuters Foundation, especially when it comes to AI implementation?
So we are right at the beginning of our AI journey. And I think just want to echo what everyone said so far, which is that making sure that buy-in from the newsroom is there right from the start. And so for me, when I think of collaboration, that's really what comes to mind. This has to be an effort from everybody, or it's not really going to work. And in order for that to happen, everyone in the newsroom has to really understand that introducing AI is a way to address these critical pain points so that we can all do the thing that we want to do, which is produce the best journalism possible and produce more of it. It's not about, machines taking our jobs. It's really about a tool to help us solve the problems that we face to enable us to do our journalism. And I think when you start to add in that it's not just going to solve problems for us, it's going to solve problems for our readers that, in an ideal world, they're communicating to us through user research or other forms of outreach that they have and would like to see fixed. We can start to implement things with AI to address those problems. I think making that really clear to journalists as well, that this is solving problems for our readers and therefore strengthening that relationship is absolutely key. So for me, it's also, obviously thinking with my audience hat on, it's also should be a collaborative process between the newsroom and our readers. Listen to them, let them tell us what they would like, and let's see how we can use some AI tools to try to address those problems while addressing the same problems for our journalists. And I think the other thing I just want to say is that another message that's really important is that we can also use AI tools to really help kind of go that next step and come up with analysis, ways of understanding how our stories are performing in ways that are much more bespoke to us as an organization, that'll allow us to go kind of beyond off the shelf platforms like Google Analytics and really kind of build our own metrics of success. And once we, I think, explain to everyone that AI is a way of helping us get there and really understanding how our stories are performing by metrics that really matter to us, the process becomes a lot more collaborative.
That's great. I actually love what you said about listening to our audience, how it's important to engage our audiences in what we're doing, because at the end of the day, we're doing the work we're doing is for them to read and consume. So we should understand what they're looking for, so that we can probably provide something that answers their needs and their and what they're looking for. So I want to go a little bit in time and go back to the AI Academy for small newsrooms that all of you were part of. I know that has been a very great experience of learning and knowing other stakeholders that again could collaborate together on some work when it comes to AI in newsrooms. So let's talk a little bit about your experiences in attending the sessions that were delivered by the AI Academy. Lee, if you want to share with us, how has the experience been, and how did that benefit you in your position in the Africa Check?
Absolutely. No, it was a fantastic experience. It was fantastic learning from everyone and learning from obviously the LSE team who have been at it for quite a number of years now. And, just the way they structured the program, made it one, digestible, but also you were able to take a lot of takeaways, from every session. Not to add that you also are able to build networks, get to talk to people who may be bigger players in that space. Your Wall Street journals, the big players, but feel that you are in a way all grappling with the same issues around AI, whether you are a big newsroom or a small one like ourselves, and I think some of the key learnings from me was one, and Sabin has articulated this, is don't be intimidated by AI, right? Think about it. At one time, even cybersecurity was viewed in the same prism, but now everyone practices, security steps when it comes to their, going online. So I think if you give into fear, then we will not have a future at all as small newsrooms. Look at some of the terms. You might see someone say, machine learning, for example, and then you are like, okay, where do I even wrap my head around this? But if you think at its essence, machine learning really is learning by example. So you just, feeding a lot of data and seeing if your model can pick up patterns. So learning by example. So that kind of simplification made it easier for me to wrap my head around the concepts of AI and how it can apply to journalism and to small newsrooms ourselves. But also the second thing which was key was sure we have a nascent pilot, and we're trying a few things and taking a few learnings. But it also struck me as an organization, we do not have an AI strategy, that will guide us, in terms of identifying our pain points, getting the requisite buy-in internally, externally, identifying the partnerships that can work, with organizations that are like-minded. So having that strategy really helps make your journey that much clearer, because if you think about it at its core, AI really is a mindset and culture, and if you're building that internally, then it will be easier for you to engage with your colleagues and your stakeholders, but also with your audiences, as Rebecca mentions, and I think I also learned it's important to start small and then be incremental, so just start, come up with a strategy, see who is dabbling in this space, otherwise you'll be paralyzed by fear, and thinking, where am I going to get the resources, so start small, be incremental, and then feedback your learnings into your work, and see where it takes you. So yeah.
Amazing. Those are some great learnings from this program. I want to move to Sabin now, and if you can tell us more about your experience, and if there is one thing that actually you felt that you learned from this program in particular, what would that be? So let's talk about experience. Let's talk about the learnings from this program as well.
So again, echoing Lee, I think strategy was one thing that the program really made me realize that we can actually integrate an AI strategy. We just need to start small, take baby steps, one thing at a time, orient our staff. I think that's really important, because if I feel if AI for me is something daunting, and I say that because when we all came together, all 20 of us, we all shared these fears. So it's really important to create a strategy where everyone in the newsroom is involved, and you also keep a mind about, like Becca said, about your audience, So that is something that was one of the most important things that we learned. And collaboration again, we talked about collaboration, and we're doing some collaborations, but I also learned that we can also reach out to universities and students who are actually working on AI, and it works both ways. They get experience and we get amazing expertise. We get these dynamic students to help us. So I think these were two among the many amazing takeaways from the program. I think these were something that really that are helping me.
Amazing, wonderful. I really like the point about the universities, because a lot of organizations still don't understand the collaboration and the treasure that they could actually get from the universities who are experimenting with different things with their students. And I think it's the idea of the collaboration within the university between journalism students, computer science, or like programming and so on students, is also very important in also preparing future journalists in to understand how the the structure and how the work within a future newsroom would look like. So Rebecca, we also want to hear from you about the takeaways and your experience within the AI Academy.
Yeah, so at the risk of repeating all of the brilliant things everyone has already said, I do want to reiterate, start small, especially as small newsrooms. Actually, the one thing that became really, really clear throughout the course is that we have the benefit of any intervention that we do will have a huge impact, right? So even something that might seem kind of obvious or small, it's worth starting there, see what a big impact it can have. And then that will give everyone kind of buy-in to want to keep trying new things and going further. The second thing, as we've mentioned a lot, but again, I think bears repeating, is start with your pain point. So really take the time to identify what is your most significant pain point as an organization, both for journalists and for your audience. Start there and really spend a lot of time making sure that everyone understands that any tool that you introduce is to help you. It's not just because we want to do some flashy thing with AI. We really are using this as a tool to help all of us. And then the other thing that I think is really important for all of us here is just keep up your networks, because this is a complicated process. It can feel a bit daunting if we're trying to put in place new workflows and get a whole newsroom on board to something that maybe they don't really feel comfortable with. And we really need each other throughout this process to keep sharing learnings, which was so great about the course, just getting everyone, getting in a room, being able to meet each other, talk to each other, share kind of case studies. And I think as we all start putting these things in place, it's really important for us to just remember that we're not alone in this, and we've got other people doing the same things and facing similar challenges. And the more we can share learnings, in spaces like this and just privately and wherever else, we'll all be better off.
Wonderful. I think we have some number of takeaways from this session that actually makes us excited to see if AI Academy is going to come back next year. I think they're going to have a lot of applications since this is what you guys are learning. There's a question from Dina Abu Ghazale who's saying that this is a great session. Thank you very much. If your small newsroom is made up of journalists only and want to start using AI, who and what would your first hire be, and what skills you need to add to your team? And I think this question is worth getting an answer from everyone, since we are already starting to wrap up. So let's get an answer from Sabin, Rebecca, and Lee on this.
So how I've done it, how we've done it, luckily I have Ananke's parent company is a tech company. So, because we are all made of journalists, and we've got an internship program where students can join us and, help us as we help them. So we basically request our parent company to, help us with, strategizing, how to integrate AI at the moment, because we're going to start from January onwards. And at the same time, we're also planning a few workshops for our small group of journalists so that they are oriented with, with the strategy, with integrating AI, and feel comfortable and feel ownership. I think that is really for, as far as my experience is concerned, you need to have ownership. Only then you can move positively forward. So, and you learn, every step of the way. So I think if you don't have resources, or if you're, still a bit worried about hiring somebody, like a lot of our mentors said, reach out to universities, reach out to the academia, reach out to anyone. I think we are a bit hesitant. There's a huge community that can help us, and we don't realize that. So I think that's how I've started.
Absolutely. Great. Rebecca, if we want to hear from you an answer to this question as well.
Sure. I mean, I think it's a bit difficult to have one answer to this question because it really depends on what kind of tools you want to put in place. Some of those things can be off-the-shelf products that you might not necessarily need a new hire for. But I think what's really important is understanding whoever you do bring into your product and tech team, that person needs to really understand the needs of journalism, and those are very different from the needs of other places where they might have come. So for example, if you're on deadline, there needs to be some system in place where you can really get things out the door quickly. And I think that might not necessarily be the way a lot of people are used to working. So it just has to be someone who's able to really speak to journalists, understand journalists, where they can really where journalists really feel like they can have a dialogue with that person and be understood and heard, and work to developing things that meet the needs of journalists. So yeah, I mean, I think that just being able to translate is so important. I think beyond that, it's a bit difficult to say, what exact needs you would need in your P&T team. It would really depend on what tools you wanted to put in place.
Great, Rebecca. Thank you very much. Lee, I want to move to you very quickly since we just have a couple of minutes. So answering that question, what would your hire look like?
At risk of echoing and what Sabin and Rebecca said, I think your first hire really should be your own colleagues. Yeah, you need to look internally and say, this is what we are trying to achieve as an organization. Yeah, because as Rebecca says, you don't have a one size fits all, and every organization will have different priorities. So if you can figure out what you are trying to achieve with your AI objectives, whether it's around news gathering or production or distribution, then that gives you a sense of, okay, what would be my next step? Who can I partner with? Because I think if you're going to bring in expertise, I don't think they come cheap, yeah? And as a small newsroom, you need to then say, who can I leverage my own journalistic expertise in exchange for their technical expertise, yeah? So that could be a startup, that could be an institution like a university, but I think if you break it down in bite-sized, approach, then you will be able to figure out, how do I then go on with my AI journey. So I think figure it out, look for people you can partner with. Else, I don't think, unless you've got a huge pot of money to bring in people to do that for you, I think you might just take those baby steps first.
I think not everybody has that, especially at the moment when it comes to the money. If you have any question, and this is directed to the audience, if you have any question, we have the Telegram channel that you can ask all your questions, and everybody is there on it. We're coming to an end, so I would like to thank Sabin, Rebecca, and Lee for this amazing talk about your own experiences of implementation AI in your newsrooms. And I want to hand the conversation back to Lakshmi. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening.
Thank you, Samya, and thank you, Sabin, Lee, and Rebecca. That was such a great conversation. I love how the theme throughout this festival has been about collaboration and how great the impact of it is. So thank you so much. And going on to the next session for the day. We have coming up larger than articles. How might we build news experiences from smaller units of content? So at 12:15 p.m. today, we'd have participants from the EMEA Collab Challenges coming together and explaining how they used artificial intelligence to create new news experiences for audiences. So they'll mostly be focusing on podcasts and news storylines. Find out more about it at 12:15. See you then.